Hello, everyone, and welcome back to ITHICS. It's the hope I can't stand. I'm Connor Bromley. I'm joined by AltEnding, or Taff, who is again wearing a t-shirt that I don't understand. But I'm sure plenty of people in the comments will go, "Oh, Turbo Wolf." I know what they are. Yeah, so it's rock.
Metal.
Is that what it is? Heavy.
Oh, it's heavy metal.
Heavy metal. All right. Well, you and my dad would get along. Might have aged you there.
Thank you again. Every week it seems.
Yeah, right, okay. Let's just dive straight into it. Everton, a 1-1 draw. I think the first thing I've got to ask, because I'm the one who just sort of observes with my eyes and don't delve into the deeper stuff, whereas you delve into the deeper stuff more so than me. But why did Sunderland start so poorly against Everton? Is it a mix of Everton being really good and having a style, or was it Sunderland just being rancid, which is what my eyes were telling me?
I think it's a combination of things. I think a bit like Manchester United, the two occasions, and Burnley, I suppose, the three occasions this season where we've gone into a game thinking, yep, we can win this one. Yep, we're doing really well. Just the three occasions where we've gone in thinking like that are the three occasions where we've come undone and not been at our best. And I don't think that that's a coincidence. I actually, it was irritating last night because they're a team that I think we can win. I think the second half and the way you finish the first half shows that we can beat them. And with the penalty, maybe we'll have done, but more on that later, I guess. And so I think it's a bit of that. And in that sense, I'm okay with the end result as a draw, because the last two times we've felt a bit like that. We've lost, but we didn't this time. I think that was important. But I think they are important lessons to learn, and important lessons to take forward. I also think there are some reasons why we perhaps didn't start so well that I think meant they had to perform, work much harder second half than they expected to. And I think some of that is kind of is to do with our tactical setup as well. And so I guess the two, for me, those two things go together. I know you have them as sort of different questions. Why do we start poorly? And the other one you asked, is, which is on the sheet we put together, is about the tactical setup. And I think last week, neither of us thought that we would go 5 at the back, although, again, it was a flexible effort. And neither of us thought we would do that. But that's kind of what happened, I think.
Yeah. It's interesting that you just made a point there that I hadn't thought about, which is the Burnley game, the Man United game. I would throw the Wolves game in there. I don't think we were great against them. And then this one where we kind of went in as favourites. And I actually then think back to last season, and we often didn't do well, particularly, like, I'm thinking Plymouth at home. I'm thinking a lot of the home games towards the back in last season. But we often don't do very well with that sort of pressure of being the sort of having the favourite. Is that an issue that maybe the manager isn't able to get, I don't know, convey that message of it doesn't matter who you're playing, you have to be at 1,000%?
Well, I think it's doubly more important in the Premier League, and I think that Burnley, less so Manchester United. I thought they were actually very impressive in that first half an hour, but we made a mistake in the way we went into that game, perhaps believing stuff too much. But definitely Burnley and Everton, we are capable of beating those teams and capable of being better in those games. And it's just a bit of sort of slackness. And I think what you learn from that is if you want to win these games in the Premier League, you have to be 100% on it. And Xhaka said so much himself. He said we weren't good enough the first 25 minutes, and then we were better. And I don't, last season I didn't feel like we were very capable of particularly making that sort of switch into being really serious about the game when we hadn't started so well. I think Xhaka helps us to do that because he's so demanding of people around him. But I just think home turf, big crowd. I mean, last time we were under the lights was that dramatic game against Coventry. And I just think all of that, you go into that game against Everton, who had who are on a poor run, and you start to think we can win this. And I just think mentally, you know, you don't get that sprinter's start when that's how you feel. You feel like, okay, let's, you know, maybe concentrate. We'll you know, there isn't the desire to try and go and get that goal in minute one or whatever. It's and we don't score much in the first half. It's all about control. But I thought we were deeply unprepared. We looked deeply unprepared for the aggressiveness of Everton in those first 20 minutes, and they were really aggressive. I know a lot of those chances are sort of slightly random, but they were. I do have some stats on Everton's sort of aggression. So if you divide the match up into like the first 25 and the last 75, then some of the statistics are quite stark. So in the first 25 minutes, Everton had 6 shots on target to 1. And in the last 75, they had 2. In fact, in the last 73 minutes, they had 1 shot on for their 6 in the first 28 minutes, 7 in the first 28 minutes. I think that comparison is huge and speaks volumes. 7 shots in the first 28 minutes, 1 shot after that. So we've clearly got our act together, but I don't think we were ready for that kind of sort of aggression, I guess. I think most of us expected Everton to arrive and be a bit like us, cautious, have less of the ball. And they did have less of the ball overall, even in that first 25. But I don't think we expected them to attack so frequently in that first half. I mean, if the game goes on with the opposition getting 6 shots every 25 minutes, I think that's a game we lose quite heavily. Although I doubt Everton can keep that up. But I think we were surprised by that, and I think that goes into the idea of perhaps, feeling slightly more comfortable than when you go away to Stamford Bridge and you've really got to be on the ball right from minute 1 or minute 4, which was against them. So, yeah, I think that tells a story just in itself. We had 1 shot in those first 28 minutes, and then 16 shots in the rest of the 73. So you can see a stark difference in who is making all the pushing if you do the first quarter and the last 3 quarters.
What I found really interesting is like when I'm sat on the ground and obviously where everyone is managing the game in their head, aren't they? Oh, I would do this, and to me it felt. I'd said on 25 minutes that I would make a change, and my change was going to be either moving Getroida into midfield and just going with the 4-3-3, or potentially bringing Talby on for one of the defenders. Maybe like take off Hume and put Talby on, and then go put Lefay into the middle. That's in my head. Those are the decisions I was making. But I think what was telling to me was that the manager, often his greatest quality is the fact that he doesn't make changes, and I think we saw this. He almost had trust in it and went, you know what, this isn't the system, it's how we're playing is the problem. It's not necessarily how we've set up. And I thought it was really, really interesting that I think 99% of managers would have, at half-time, but I know we picked up towards the end of the first half, I get that, but most managers, I think, would have probably made a change. We didn't make a change till the 70th, 80th minute, something like that, before we made
I was really surprised how late the changes came, actually, because I felt like Broby and Talby would have come on, much earlier, particularly when we're pressing and chasing the game. But I kind of understand why they don't, because we're so dominant at that point that you feel as though something is going to come any second. But I just think fresh legs. Broby is a beast to hold the ball up, although we don't really need it being held up at that point in the game because we're so active going forward. But yeah, I can see why he left them later than normal, but it's still a surprise that it came so late. The game's almost done by the time those two get on. We're almost undone at the end as well. But I think there's I think there are a couple of reasons, and one of them you touched on. And I've got some stuff to show here, which I think will lead into some conclusions. So, how do I? Can I present that? I can't. Can I? Isn't it logged in properly? Yeah, the Pass Network, Sunderland Pass Network. That's the one I want. Yeah. Well, this is our Pass Network, which looks pretty decent, and you can see the regular way that we play with Xhaka, all the ball pretty much going through him. And we have our triangles on the right with 20, 32, and 25. That's Mukiele, Hume, and Traore. And on the other side, we have Reynildo, Siddiqui, and Lefay. So, I mean, that's pretty standard. But I want you to remember those, particularly on the right, that we have Mukiele, Hume, and Traore. And if you are to say that is how we're attacking on the right-hand side, then you're going to say, even before I show you the expected sort of stats for this, you're going to make the assumption that we're going to be less devastating on the right-hand side when you compare to who's on the left. We certainly have no particular pace. I think Traore is quite fast, lacks a bit of physicality, but Lefay is not particularly fast on the left. So I think countering becomes a bit more difficult. Most of your countering pace on the flanks is on the bench today, I think. Now, I understand this setup. You put Hume and Mukiele there because they're competent players. Mukiele has some pace, but you put them there because you're worried about Grealish, which is Everton's most creative threat, perhaps. And so the reason you have Hume in there is because he can play in midfield. He does get upfield. He is used to it. And you, but you want to guard against Grealish. So that's why you have him in there than perhaps Rig, or that's why you have him in there rather than, you're not going to put another Ring one. Second. So I just want you to think about that formation, that triangle on the right there. That's why Hume and Mukiele play there. But I think for that to work, they have to be effective defensively. And they also have to be able to offer something offensively. Now, I think you can see where this is going, but if you bring up the Everton Pass Network, you'll see that they are much shabbier because this is a pass network based on the whole game rather than the first 25 minutes. But clearly, you can see that Sunderland dominate the game overall. But where they are able to pass and where they are able to be progressive is down that left-hand side, which is against our defensive right. And you can see here, 16 is Mikolenko, 18 is Grealish, and 22 is Dewsbury Hall. And so you've got Mukiele and Hume in there to try and have some solidity against Dewsbury Hall and Grealish. Although I think that was a bit of a surprise first. You go to the game the previous week, Dewsbury Hall played much more central. And Everton were undone that day by Kudas coming over to the right-hand side and helping double mark Grealish. So I think this is Sunderland's effort to do the same and to undo Everton by killing Grealish by double marking him. But instead of moving a creative player like Kudas over, as Tottenham had done, they've replaced a creative player with Hume, who can be creative, but he's not a sort of traditionally creative midfielder. So they've done that. So it is, in perhaps typical Debris fashion, a cautious solution following what the success that Tottenham had. But I don't think that Moyes, much as I'd love to call him an idiot, I don't think he is an idiot. I think he looks at the Tottenham game and says, right, well, people are going to notice that, so Grealish needs more support. And so what he does is he moves Dewsbury Hall over from the centre to the right, and then you have a one-on-one with Grealish and Dewsbury Hall quite often with Hume and Mukiele, and that's far less stable than when you just have to double mark Grealish. So I think there is an element of that in the beginning where perhaps we're slightly caught unawares, and I don't think it is a coincidence. I know the goal is a sort of a freak, wonderful goal from Mendy, and I think you have to appreciate his running there. It's fantastic. But they did find chances and space on that sort of inside, Everton's inside left, our inside right, their inside attacking left position. Dewsbury Hall and Grealish popping up, Grealish hits the post. That's their last shot for the next 70 minutes, I think, when he hits the post there. And, his cross to Barry, who's clearly a donkey. And, so I think those things, when you start to have a look at it, those things kind of fit together. Why we set up like that, what we're trying to do, the adjustment that Moyes has made, having seen what happened at Tottenham, and equally then why initially we struggle, because there's more creativity than we expect pushing on that left, and why there's so much danger coming from the left. Although the goal doesn't come from there, there's a lot of danger that comes from their early doors. So I think that explains some of why we set up and some of why we're caught on the hop. So you then have to say, right, all right, well, how did we do defensively? And if you bring up Sunderland's defensive actions, that chart there that we've got, what we're looking at here, which I think I talked about last week, is the CBI, the second column, which is clearances, blocks, and interceptions. I'm not looking at total defensive actions because that includes fouls. I don't really think we want to be including that. So this is ranked at the minute in order of who makes the most CBIs. And what we're looking for here is our right wing combination of Traore, Hume, and Mukiele. And I can see that Mukiele has, very good stats there, but I'm not so sure that Hume, adding defensive solidity there, is actually helping that solidity a great deal more. I mean, him and Traore, share the same defensive contributions there, and I don't think that would be the outcome that Labrie was expecting by putting Hume into that position. That is partly because they don't just have Grealish to look after; they've got Dewsbury Hall as well. So not necessarily digging him out. I'm just saying that the result of that decision and that setup is probably not what we expected. If you look at, I think I have another one here. I've got the average positions, by the way. No, that shows the same thing. We've already done with the PES. You can see there that the positions are the same. I have some more stuff on that I'd like to talk about if you let me. About well, I quite like talking about it, but I
was going to say you're about 7 minutes deep there. I think on a nice rant about how we played yesterday.
Well, I don't know.
Go on.
Let me. Yeah. So if we have a look at let me load this up. There's a progressive carries. If you have a look at the progressive carries here, and actually, if I can, I'll just load up another one, which is I think a diagram of all of our progressive carries, which is this one here. So we'll have both of these, but we'll have the other one first, one with the second one there. This one here. So these are two halves, and this is Sunderland attacking. It seems a bit counterintuitive, but the sort of streaked scratch is the direction from the faded out bit up to the dot. That is the progressive carry, and which the dot is the point at which a pass is made or a shot is taken. So you can see Sunderland have way more progressive carries into the opposition half than Everton do. And that's because this is overall, as an overall metric for the entire game. And obviously we dominate the last sort of 70 minutes. But you look at where Everton's progressive carries are, obviously you can see the big diagonal to the centre of the box. The centre of the D is in Dyer's run that results in a goal. But, more than, 5 of the remaining 8 are from that left-hand side with Grealish and Dewsbury Hall. And look at our progressive carries. Over triple the amount of time down that right-hand side, our right-hand side, which is not triple the amount threat. So I don't think it's clear that our left side is much more productive than our right side. So we've lost a bit of creativity, and we're looking for defensive solidity with that selection, Mukiele and Hume. Obviously, you have fewer progressive carries, and if you bring up the stats, the numbers on the other progressive carries, you can see here that Mukiele, Hume, and Traore isn't even on there as a progressive carry. Hume has 1 progressive carry. Mukiele has 5. Obviously, he's the traditional right back, so he gets to do that more often. But you look at that, and you say, obviously, we've lost some creativity. That's a given. But we don't really seem to get it back in defensive solidity. And I think that is what catches us off guard in that first 25 minutes and why we're poor. least I think some of it. I can see what they're trying to do. I don't think it quite works, and it's because Dewsbury Hall moves over and makes everything more difficult. But they come out fiercer, and he makes little adjustments. He moves people around, but because he sticks with that formation so long, I don't. Yes, we dominate the game, but all of our best creative chances, I think, largely come down our left and not our right, because we don't have a very creative right because of what he's doing. So I think that presses into your question about being surprised we left changes so late, given that situation.
Go on. I was going to say, I think when I watched the game yesterday, Hume's a really interesting one, because for me, you're basically playing him in central midfield and right back. That's kind of what you're doing. And Siddiqui, for me, plays kind of left back and central midfield as well. Siddiqui, I think, plays a similar kind of... Obviously, he's got a bit more freedom, but it's quite similar the way that they're kind of utilised. What I don't understand is that Trey Hume, as much as I like him as a fullback, I don't see why you would go with Trey Hume in that position and maybe not try a Dan Neil in there, or Getroida would be maybe a better option there. For me, I just think that he's not the right guy to play that position. I know we've played him centrally a bit in the Championship, but I think that's a different animal, and I just think that he's not good enough on the ball, and I don't think he's technically good enough compared to Siddiqui. When you look at Siddiqui, he's obviously technically a fantastic footballer, and he knows that position really well. I just kind of don't get the thinking of...
They're kind of slightly different. So Siddiqui is a tremendous midfielder who can also, defend and strengthen the back left, whereas Hume is a defender who can strengthen and stretch the midfield. So it's not quite the same thing, but I understand what you mean. But how, after the Chelsea game, how could you drop any of them? I think he earned the chance to play there. It would have been quite the surprise and quite unfair to say, yeah, tremendous stuff, but I need a midfielder who can defend but might be a bit more creative, or who understands how midfielders move. Particularly when you see that first 25 minutes, or when you see that Dewsbury Hall is playing closer to Grealish, and you're thinking about those changes. Maybe you think about a more traditional midfielder might cope with that sort of movement a bit better. Maybe you do that, but it would have been extraordinarily harsh to have done that from the off, also very early on. I think he had earned the chance, he had earned the trust to say, let's try to repeat that role. And to be fair, I think Everton slightly caught us off guard at the beginning. We adjusted and managed it. If we get that penalty, if we're at it right from the off, then maybe we're not picking these tiny holes. I think they are small holes as well.
It's not. I don't think it ultimately didn't affect the result. Let's talk about the penalty though. And the refereeing generally, I thought that the referee had a poor handle on the game, and I think, as far as I'm aware, I could be wrong on this, but I'm pretty sure it took him 19 minutes to give the first foul of the game, which was Siddiqui getting booked. I'm pretty sure that was the first foul of the game. I might be wrong. There might have been one in the first couple of minutes that I've forgotten about. There was a massive stretch without a decision, and there was a lot of, I wouldn't say 50-50s, I think 60-40s. I don't think that it was a foul on Siddiqui for their goal. I've seen them given, but I don't think it was. But I think that the referee had put himself into a corner early doors by putting such a high bar on what a foul was. I think he struggled to keep a handle on the game. And then the penalty decision for me, I'm probably not as angry about it as I possibly should be, because I think that a draw is a fair result. I don't think that I'm sat here going, that's the reason why. And look, it's not like the ball was probably going to go into the box and would have scored from it. But I find it so frustrating that I don't understand the handball rule, because when I saw Leeds get one against Tarkowski on the opening day of the season, which for me was never a handball. His hand was at his side. He did kind of lean into the ball, but he was fundamentally, his arm stuck to his side. I can't understand how you could look at those two handballs and say that the Tarkowski one is and the Michael Keane one yesterday isn't. And I think that's my frustration with this one. Now, I would also say I think Jordan Pickford probably saves the penalty, because that's just the way that that would have been the story of the night. But yeah.
Well, who would have taken the penalty? Surely Lefebvre?
Yeah, Lefebvre or Xhaka.
Yeah, maybe.
But Lefebvre scored one this season, so
he takes it again. Yeah. Initially, when I saw the very first sort of replay, I thought, well, obviously, it looks like a handball immediately, but it's not a natural position to be stood there like this unless you're doing karate, and they're not. So it doesn't work. Initially, when I saw the replay, I said, "Oh, right, no, it doesn't hit this arm here. It hits this arm right next to his body. So it doesn't matter if that's here or there; it's going to hit his body." And I thought, well, that's probably not a penalty. But then, it doesn't take very much to say, well, it doesn't matter because whatever happens after that, it hits this arm stuck out here, which shouldn't be there. Even if it hits my chest and then it hits my arm here, that would be a penalty. And so I don't really understand what VAR are doing. I think they look at it really closely and somebody somewhere gets tangled and says, oh, no, it doesn't hit this arm first. It hits here and you can't move that. No penalty. And I think they just forget the next thing that happens, which is, it's okay. Let's imagine his hand isn't there, or whatever it is. It's off his body, and it's into an unnatural hand position, and that's the step that I think they don't take. And I just think someone, I can imagine these people under pressure saying, "Oh, right, it actually doesn't touch that hand first. No, it touches this hand, then it's in his body." And that's the only way that I can conclude they've decided it, and it's wrong. But I don't see how they've got to any other decision, and I just think that's a sort of under pressure human error. Shouldn't be. Because they're supposed to be trained and used to this, and but that's I cannot think of any other reason why it can't be given, and that's a wrong reason for it not to be given. But I just think they've got lost in that in the moment. There's no way.
I find it hard as well that the linesman's on that side, so like the linesman's probably seen it, and I think the referees thought, well, if VAR don't. Like, I often wonder if it changes the mindset of the referee, where they go, well, do you know what? I've got that safety net. So if I give it, I'll look like an idiot. So I'll not give it and hope that VAR corrects it. And I think that last night, and one of the other things that really irritated me last night, and I think this is actually a Sunderland problem. I don't think it was a VAR problem. The communication around the VAR, nothing ever came up on the scoreboard to say what was happening. Nothing said, like, when Everton scored, there was obviously a VAR check on the foul, but nothing was said on the scoreboard. So you're in the crowd, and for the previous games, it has come up, VAR check for XYZ. And I don't know why it was, but yesterday, there was no communication in the ground on what was actually happening, which is very frustrating because you're sat there questioning, like, oh, well, are they checking this handball or not? And you don't know. And you're waiting for, you see the referee doing this, and like, well, he's obviously checking something. And that is very frustrating. I know that's an aside, and it's not really the referee's fault, but I think, yeah, I think it was a handball, and I'm pretty disappointed about it. Going back to the game, though, do you think we deserve to win the game by the end? I think I saw a comment from David Moyes where he said that if he was told at 30 minutes that Everton had drawn, he would have been really disappointed. But then by the end of the game, if he said on 90 minutes, I think he was like, yeah, okay, we'll take that and we'll hold on. But what do you think? Do you think a draw was fair? Do you think we edged it in the end?
Yeah, I'm disappointed. I think this is a team that we can beat. I think this is a team that we should be trying to beat. I can't fault their effort for the last sort of 70 minutes. But I think if you play that game again, I think we'd probably do something slightly different. And I think we give them a bit more respect at the beginning. And I would want us to win. I would think we could win. So I was disappointed, especially when there's a denied penalty, and we're so dominant in that second half. I just think, I expect to win. But yeah, I mean, then you have the 93rd minute, and I think we're lucky to escape there. So we're lucky to escape not losing that game. Yeah. It's only because they were so slow and ponderous in that attack. I thought that was awful play by Everton not to convert that or even get a shot off the keepers. It was awful.
I think the narrative around Granit Xhaka, which we've seen all day, of him being Captain Fantastic, would have changed had that one went in, because it was his honking pass, wasn't it?
Yes,
he did
it
that
was.
A couple of times in this game. So, what do you make of Talby? Because I'm very frustrated. It reminds me a little bit of last season when we kept sticking Lefay out on the left, and you're like, oh, I just want to see him in the centre. Just want to see him in the centre, and we continue to play him in the left. I feel very frustrated that Talby, when he comes on yesterday, is on the right side. Also, if he was on the left and say he started the game, and I'm not going into the tactical decisions because obviously there's reasons, but he's playing against Jake O'Brien, their right back. I feel like we would have got a lot of joy with a proper winger going up against their centre back who was playing right back. I find it very frustrating though that Talby is so clear. It's like if you've ever played Football Manager and you move players around the team and like in one position they're 4-star and then you flip the other side and they go down to 2-star. And I feel like that's what you do with Talby. If you stick him on the right, you just hamstring him and don't let it. He doesn't look confident when he plays out there. And I think it's frustrating because I just wonder if you want to leave Lefay on the field, which is fine, can he not go over to the right side and you put Talby where he's strongest? Like surely Enzo Lefay, who we aren't relying on to be like a traditional winger, surely he can play on that right-hand side for the last 15 minutes of the game.
You're going to get pelters for your Football Manager comparison. But maybe, well, you will know I've mentioned this. I think the reason he comes on the right against Everton is because of what I was trying to highlight before about the fact that we lack creativity there. I think that Labrie is essentially a cautious manager, and the reason the substitutes don't come on earlier is because we're dominating. Surely the break will come, and I don't want to lose any of that defensive possibility, although I don't think we were that good defensively, or not as good as we hoped to be on that back right, because Dewsbury Hall moves over. So I think a lot of it is I don't want to lose any solidity. We're back in the game and we're dominating, and I think a break will come. So I think that's why the substitutes come very late, and then when they do come on, I think it is the acceptance and realization that we don't have enough creativity on the right, and it becomes easy to defend against if we just sort of like wait our defence on the left. There isn't that much creativity on the right. So I think that's why he comes on the right. But I think last night's game, was actually very instructive for the club as to what do we need in January. We need, obviously Diarra comes back, but he's going to have to get fit again. But it shows you that if we have an injury or something, we need a right midfielder, not a right winger. We need a right winger and a right midfielder. So, we're still feeling our way to some degree. But I think it's becoming clear that those are two positions that we need, would certainly like to have in the January window. So I thought it was very instructive last night. And, in the grand scheme of things, it's not bad to have a really instructive, game that you don't lose. So lots to be learnt, I think, from the recent performances. But that's why Talby, I think, comes on there because we lack that kind of creativity in comparison to the left. But why not? I was a bit disappointed last night that I understand the vision that we didn't have a proper winger on the field. Lefay is a good defender. Could he not have played in Hume's position and we had Talby or Odinga on the left?
Yeah, no, I agree.
Where the threat was less.
Well, I'd said to you before that one of the changes I was talking about making, if I was Reggie at half time, was taking Hume off and bringing Talby on to move Lefay. That was what I would have done at that point of the game. That felt like for me the logical thing. Yeah. I think it's very frustrating because Talby, when I've seen him on the left and we haven't seen enough of it, looks like a fantastic player.
Yes.
And I just feel like putting him on the right, you'd be almost better off not bringing him on because he is not effective on the right wing. So why not bring on, even if they brought on, say, Mayenda onto the right wing yesterday, maybe that would have been a better option than bringing Talby on. If you're not going to put him on the left wing, then just don't bring him on.
I think that, I think you're right. Yeah. By that, the substitute is so late that they're less worried about the defensive contributions. But no, they are. I mean, it's to substitute for Traore. Yeah, I don't see why you couldn't bring.
He brought off Lefay last weekend as well for Talby. So again,
but he didn't bring him off for Talby though. He brought him off for whatever it was now.
I just mean that the structure ended up in a way that
it did.
Talby came.
Yeah, it was. But Talby initially came on for a good 10 minutes as a right winger, I think, against Chelsea, and then moved to the left. Well, he made the same substitution last week. Travel came on for Traore initially.
Let's. I saw Kirill made some comments yesterday, interviewed by Sky, talking about not setting ourselves a budget for the summer, and he said that we knew we had to go for it as we go back to the Championship and then hope for a top 10 finish. Now, I really don't like sort of setting these targets of we hope for a top 10 finish, because what this does is it inadvertently puts a lot of pressure on. You know, you are, by saying we hope for a top 10 finish, you're essentially saying that that's the target, and therefore if we finish 14th, which I think everyone right now would take as a Sunderland fan, I think we'd all be happy with 14th place. Is that a failure?
That'll be disappointment. Yeah, will it be disappointment because the expectations are set? Look, I don't think so. I think given what we've been through in the last 4 or 5 years, or the where we've come from in the last 4 years, and everything since 2017, I think we're very well tempered to say, look, let's just take our small progressions as we can. And I don't think we're in the habit of getting carried away. And I don't feel like any of us have ever got carried away, even when the promotions were coming along. I thought we were all very realistic about who we were and what our chances were. And I don't think that is suddenly going to change. We've clearly had an influx of, returning fans or new ones. But I don't feel anywhere that there is this outrageous expectation. There is that hope that, wow, could we really be surprising? There's that kind of inkling of hope that we all dare not believe in, but I know we all think it sometimes. So no, I don't think that this is going to be bad for us. I mean, obviously there'll be some people who will view 13th or 14th as a bit of a missed opportunity, but I was thrilled to hear that, because as you know, I have several bets on us being in top half. So when he says that, I'm great. But I think it's a great sign, because I think that shows no budget set. We want top half finish. I think that's a really good indication for going back into the transfer market in January. So I think we can be hopeful of stuff in January. Who knows? It has always depended in the past on, is the right player available for the right price? And we've gone through times when we've needed stuff. I just not got it because we're not prepared to pay for the odds. We're not prepared to pay for somebody who's not quite right. So it doesn't guarantee we'll get things, but I think the intention is there. So I thought it was a really hopeful comment. And what is wrong? If you subscribe to the idea that we won't get carried away as fans, then there's nothing wrong with the owner saying that. I think that is a tremendous message for the squad to hear. If Xhaka says we've got to be professional, we can do this. We can be people on that day. Here are the standards, and the owner says this is what we're aiming for. Why can't they believe in that? Why can't they strive for that? Because if you're in fourth now, so we haven't played a lot of the top half teams, but if we're in fourth now and you're striving for 14th, that's a lot less demanding than to strive for 9th to 10th.
But it's a different sort of message though to what we heard last week from the manager, who said, let's get to 40 points. That's all we care about. That's what I mean. I just mean that you potentially at the end of the season, if it does, if we sit and end up finishing in the bottom half comfortably, say we finish 15th, 16th, this is going to be a stick to poke the manager with, when I think we'd all say that finishing there is a success. That's what my concern with it is that it potentially puts unnecessary pressure. Like, nobody has mentioned finishing in the top 10. Nobody.
I have.
I know.
I'm going to win money.
Yeah,
but I'm not sure I really believe it.
No. Nobody at the club said that though, and now that target is there. And maybe it's not a bad thing. Maybe that's what they all say internally, and maybe this is no new message, and all the players are like, oh yeah, well that's what we said in the summer. But I think it can change the mindset of fans. I know the people who sit round me, and if we are sat in March, say from relegation, we've got 42 points, so we're safe from relegation, but we're in March and we lose 4 games in a row. The people will, as they did at the end of last season when we lost 5 in a row heading into the playoffs, the people will begin to turn, because oh, well, we said that we were going to finish in the top 10 and the players have down tools and stuff. That's my worry with it.
Yeah, maybe. I quite liked it, though. I think it's a nice ambition. I also think it showed a really nice side to Kirill in that he's a bit like us. Why can't he get carried away, Why can't he be just as sort of excitedly enthusiastic as... Because we all do secretly think, oh, it's a very small chance, but maybe we could finish 10th. That would be amazing. We all think like that, even if we don't speak about it. And for him to sort of reveal that he's kind of just like us in that kind of excited hope, that's no bad thing. So I liked it. It does. I accept it does produce pressure, but I liked it.
Are we done? Are we finished with our Everton review? Anything else to add?
Yeah. Look, I'm not too disappointed, particularly that 93rd minute chance for Everton. I'm not too disappointed upon reflection with a draw. It's a bit irritated because it is a game we could win, and I think it'll be much tougher prospect at the end of the season going to their new stadium looking for a win. So, look, yeah, it's not too. I was a bit disappointed. As the day progresses, I'm less disappointed.
Well, I wanted 4 points. 4 points from these 4 games, like a point a game over this period between the international break. So we're already on 7. So I can't. You can't grumble too much at a draw against Everton.
No,
so
I think we're all still very happy.
Yes. Well, thanks everyone for watching this episode of It's the Hope I Can't Stand. Thanks, Taff, for coming on. We'll have propaganda coming up. We'll also have our preview for the Arsenal game. So thanks for watching. Please like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. And we'll see you all soon.